And finally, the last piece of this is how does it solve the problem, right? 320 million school-going children, 7 million teachers in our country. How do we solve the problem? So we believe at Teach for India that the power of our model actually lies less in the fellows during the 2 years and more in our alumni. And we're very new. This is year 3, but we had our first batch graduate. So I want to show you what some of them have chosen to do. And interestingly, going into the fellowship, very few of them thought that they would stay in the development sector. And going out of the fellowship, 70% of them have stayed in education and in development. So here's Sana. She was working with GE before the fellowship, taught for 2 years. She's now with McKinsey, only focused on large-scale school transformation and how to impact that. Here's Prabhu, grew up in a village, in a government school, realized the importance of education, spent 2 years teaching at Teach for India. Today he's the Maharashtra Director for Room to Read. He's getting libraries into all the municipal schools that have no books. This is Gaurav. Gaurav is currently studying at the best in the world, I think, institute to become a school leader in New York. It's called the KIPP Fellowship Program, and his dream is to come back and start 100 outstanding schools for the poorest kids. Tarun just headed to the Kennedy School at Harvard on a Fulbright scholarship. His dream is passionate about politics, to start an Indian school of politics where young people develop the moral fiber to be able to cope with active politics. And Anna is one of many of our fellows who stayed on our team as staff, saying if we need to get this model to scale, we need a lot of our own fellows driving the movement forward. Not a new idea. Some of you may have heard of Teach for America, which is a 20-year-old organization which has changed the landscape in the US. But the fascinating thing is it's also started, all these different movements around the world have now started, and we're all connected through a network called Teach for All. Most recent country to start is Teach for Pakistan. We have China, Austria, very, very diverse. Really amazing to hear that the problem of educational inequity is a global problem. Finally, 5 years from now, that's our goal. 2,000 fellows transforming 65,000 kids with 3,000 alumni fighting for educational equity from diverse spaces. And when I say diverse spaces, we think of it as a giant jigsaw puzzle. There are pieces in that jigsaw puzzle that are things in education that need to be fixed, but we believe we need leaders in pieces outside of education as well, because until you have a different type of politician, business leader, media leader, lawyer, all focused on changing India for its children, we're not going to solve this puzzle. And finally, 20 years down the line, just a few things that I have learned. One is, it's all about the vision, you know. Once you find that compelling vision, you know, people ask me often, do you ever feel like giving up? I never feel like giving up. And it's not that I will be with Teach for India necessarily for the next 10 or 20, it doesn't matter where I am. Could be Akanksha, Teach for India, working with the government. But that commitment to that vision will never go. The second is, this was one of my most favorite Akanksha students. His name was Latif. And he was most certainly one of the most wonderful young people I've ever met in my life. Just good at everything. Friendly, the kind of person, he walks into the room and he just makes you happy because he's just so incredibly wonderful and good at everything that he does. I always thought that I understood through my work what it meant to give. And then something happened with Latif that taught me that giving is so complex and I don't have a clue what it really means to give. Latif passed away 2 years ago, very, very suddenly. I was on my way to Pune. I reached Pune. I got a call saying Latif's in the ICU. Turned my car around. By the time I reached back to Bombay, he had passed away. The next day I was in his home, and he didn't have a father. He had a mother and he had a grandfather who he was incredibly incredibly close to. His dream was for his grandfather to stop working. And his grandfather told me, he said, Didi, last night before Latif went to the hospital, I knew he was really, really sick. So I took 14,000 rupees, which had been my savings over the last 6 months, and I put it in his hand and I said, Latif, promise me that you will go to a private hospital. Don't go to a government hospital, Latif, you're not well. Take this money and go to a private hospital. And Latif, because he didn't want his grandfather to go back to work, took that money when no one was looking, put it back into the trunk, went to a government hospital, died 12 hours later. I don't know if the outcome would have been any different. But that story humbled me to no extent. I said, to be able to give when it really hurts, when it's really difficult, when your life really depends on it, that's really the beauty of giving. And I think in this work, in the work of the social venture world, you need to know how to give. That's what I've realized. I've been tested over and over again. The next thing is to be nice. And I don't know what I'll remember from today, but I know I'll remember that moment when Ajit said, let the little boy talk. It was a small act of kindness, but I feel as human beings, we're sort of programmed. Our default is not to be nice, right? We never say when there's no traffic, oh my God, how lovely there's no traffic. But the minute we're in a traffic jam, we all talk about it. There's a little story about a man who's tying his shoelace. The shoelace breaks. The man next to him is looking at him. This guy's cursing his shoelace. So the man says, how long have you had those shoes? And he says, 10 years. And he says, is this the first time the shoelace broke? Yes. Did you ever in those 10 years thank the shoelace for doing its job? But the one day it breaks, you know. So just the value in this difficult work that we embark in being nice to each other, I think has been a huge learning for me. Most importantly, this idea of the mirror. When there's a problem in my life, I always have a choice. I can pick up a mirror or I can pick up a magnifying glass. When I pick up a magnifying glass, the problems are outside me. They become bigger. When I pick up a mirror, I have to look at my own face. I have to ask, what will I do about it? I think this is one of the biggest learnings that I've had, something I keep struggling with, keep failing, but this is a big, big learning as part of my journey. And finally, I really think starting something's actually quite easy. Sticking with it is what counts, you know, and there are so many times when it goes up, down, but really the value of not giving up. So I'm just going to end with that last slide again and say I'm unbelievably thrilled that Teach for India is going to be placing 75 fellows in Hyderabad. Hopefully all things go well next year. And it's just a real honor to be here and share my story with you. And please follow the Teach for India movement and do whatever you can to support it, because we all need to work together for our kids.